In our previous video, we looked at the definition of a relation and a function, and in this video, we're going to look at how to determine the domain and range from a graph, and also how to use the vertical line test to determine if a relation is a function. If we're given a list of ordered pairs, it's easy to determine the domain and range because if you remember, the domain is the x values, and the range is the y values. But when we're given a graph, it can sometimes be difficult. If you remember our terms Hoy and Vux from previous lessons, Hoy stood for horizontal lines, had zero slope and were y equals, and vertical lines had undefined slope and were x equals. Since the domain includes x values, we can use vertical lines to help us determine the domain. And since the range included y values, we can use horizontal lines to determine the range. When I see a graph like this, I think it's easiest to draw a box around the graph. It's a specific shape. And we can use these vertical lines here and here to help us determine the domain. Notice those vertical lines go from 0 up to 4, and those values are included, so that's our domain. And our range, we use the horizontal lines, which go from 2 up to 4. If we look at this example, again, we're going to look at domain and range. If I look at vertical lines, notice this line keeps going forever and ever. So my vertical lines are never going to stop. So the domain in this case is going to be all real numbers, or you could write it as negative infinity to infinity. In contrast, the range, there's only one horizontal line. Remember, range are the y values and horizontal lines are y equals. So the range is going to equal simply 4. In this example, notice if I draw my vertical lines to determine my domain, again, they go on forever. So my domain is going to be all reals. But this time, my horizontal lines also can go on forever. So my range will also be all reals. The last example graphically that we want to look at is if we're given ordered pairs or just dots. Remember, these are simply ordered pairs now where we can determine the domain, and it will be the individual numbers. So the domain in this case would be -5, 1, 2, coming from -5, 1, and 2 are the x values. And the range would be -2, coming from both of these, 1 from right here, and 4 from right here. Last but not least, we want to talk about the vertical line test. We've discussed the domain and range of these relations, but remember, functions are a special type of relation where x does not repeat. And the way we use the vertical line test is if a vertical line hits more than once, the graph is not a function. And as you can see here, if I draw a vertical line, it hits twice. So this is not a function. In this case, the vertical lines only hit one time. So this is a function. Likewise, this one is a function. And here, because this vertical line hits in 2 places, this would not be a function.